All right, we're doing section 2.1. In 2.1, the first one was, these are assess your understanding, and they're word fill in the blanks on something. So number 2 was the first one that was left with a question mark. If x equals -2, the value of the expression 3x squared minus 5x plus 1 over x is, so if you put 2 in, minus 2 in, square it, you get 4 times 3 is 12. -5 times -2 is plus 10, and 1 over -2 is minus 1/2. So we get 22 minus 1/2, which is 21.5, or 21.5. 3, it says the domain of the variable in the expression x minus 2 over x plus 4. Well, what can x be? It can be everything except what causes division by 0. We don't care if the numerator is 0. It's just the denominator. So it's all reals except -4. X can't be -4 because that would make 0 in the denominator. Then 5. 5 says to rationalize 3 over the square root of 5 minus 2. That means to get the square root out of the denominator, you have to multiply the numerator and denominator by the conjugate of the denominator, or square root of 5 plus 2. Square root of 5 plus 2. That's called the conjugate. And if you do this, then you're going to get square root of 5 times square root of 5, which is 5. No square root on it. Take the square root of 5 times 2, and you're going to get plus 2 square roots of 5. But this is going to make minus 2 square roots of 5, and so those are going to cancel, so there's no square roots from them, and then minus 2 times plus 2 is minus 4. And that would get rid of the square roots in the denominator. So that's rationalizing the denominator. And then the next one's 8. Now we're in a different section, concepts. If the domain of f is all reals, in the interval from 0 to 7 inclusive, and the domain of G for all reals is on the interval, domain of G is all reals on the interval from -2 to 5, then the domain of f plus g has to be, well, you have to be able to use f, which is only from 0 to 7. Let's take a picture of that, from 0 to 7. And g is from -2 to 5. But we have to be able to figure out what f of the x is and g, and that only happens for the ones where we know for both, which should be from 0 to 5. So the domain of f plus g is going to be all reals on the interval from 0 to 5, and we can include the 5 because it's in both of them, and we can include the 0 because it's in both of them. Okay, next one was 9. 9, the domain of f divided by g consists of the numbers for which g of x, and it has a 0. The domain will be anything where g has a value except 0. So the domain is where every place except when g is 0. that are in the domain of both f and g. So f and g have to have, you have to be able to do f of the x's, you have to be able to do g of the x's, and you just can't use an x that causes g of x to be 0. That's what they wanted you to say. 13. True or false? If no domain is specified for a function f, then the domain of f is to be taken the set of all real numbers, if all real numbers can be used. Yes, that's true. If they can be used. Okay. And then 14. True or false? The domain of f of x, which is x squared minus 4 over x, is the set whose elements are numbers such that the numbers are not equal to plus or minus 2. Well, plus or minus 2 makes the numerator 0. There's no problem with that, so this is not true. The only problem is x equal to 0, so the domain would be the set of all numbers such that the numbers are not equal to 0. That would be the domain. Next one is 15. The set of all the images of the elements of the domain is called the range. If you put in 1 and you get out 2, the image of 1 becomes 2. If I put in 3 and get out a minus 5, the image of 3 is minus 5. 3 is taken to a minus 5. That's where its image goes. 3 is taken to there, so that's what they're talking about. So the image coming out is the range. That was 15. And why did I do 15? Because it says 18. All right, let's do 18. 18. When we write y equals f of x, a function is said to be defined explicitly. Implicitly, it's when it's like y squared plus x squared equals 3 or 36. This is like the circle. This is implicit. You can't get y by itself. But if you can get y by itself, it's considered an explicit formula. An implicit is when you can't get y is not solved for. This is an implicit. Y is not solved for. Y is solved for. Explicit. All right. Now let's go to 36 is the next one that was asked. And in 36 we have y equals plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 2x, and it says determine whether an equation is a function. Well, this right here is saying you're going to get two y values for a single x value. So you're going to have x going to two different y values, the plus square root of this and the minus. So not a function. 40. Is this a function? Y equals 3x minus 1 over x plus 2. Every time you put a different x in, you're going to get a different y. You're going to get a y out. And there's no value you can put in for x that will produce two things like the plus and minus did. So this one would be a function. It just won't be defined for minus 2 because you can't put negative 2 in because it gives you 0 in the denominator. But it's still a function. 43. And you can type that into your calculator and you can see that it'll pass the vertical line test. 43. We've got a whole bunch of things to do here on this next group, and that's find f of 0, f of 1, f of -1, f of negative x, negative f of x, f of x plus 1, f of 2x, and f of x plus h. Blah. So on 43, f of x equals 3x squared plus 2x minus 4. So if I put 0 in for the x's, this is 0 and that's 0, and so I'm left with -4. So f of 0 is -4. If I put in 1, then I get 3 times 1 squared, which is 3, plus 2 times 1, which is 2, minus 4, and that's 1. 5 minus 4 is 1. If I do f of -1, -1 squared is 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times -1 is -2, minus 4, and that's 3 minus 6, which is -3. F of -x. So that says put -x in for those, and so that's -x times -x is +x squared, so I get 3x squared. And then I got 2 times a -x, which becomes -2x minus 4. Then the negative of f of x is really simple. That means just take the negative of everything. -3x squared, the negative of plus 2x is -2x. The negative of -4 is +4. And then f of x plus 1. So I'm going to have 3 times, instead of x, it's x plus 1, plus 2 times x plus 1 minus 4. So x plus 1 times x plus 1 is x squared plus x plus 1, which is x squared plus 2x plus 1. That times 3 is 3x squared plus 6x plus 3 plus 2x plus 2 minus 4, which is 3x squared. 6x and 2x is plus 8x, plus 3 plus 2 is 5, minus 4 is plus 1. F of 2x. So it's 3 times 2x squared plus 2 times 2x minus 4. So 2x times 2x is 4x squared times 3 is 12x squared plus 4x minus 4. And finally, f of x plus h is going to be 3. In place of the x is x plus h squared plus 2 in place of the x is x plus h minus 4. I could multiply that out and take that times 3 like we kind of did this one here, and then take 2 times each of those and then a minus 4, but nothing will simplify very well. I'll just write what that is. See, x plus h squared is x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. If I take that times 3, I get 3x squared plus 6xh plus 3h squared. 2 times x plus h is plus 2x plus 2h, and then the minus 4. That was 43. And somebody asked me for 46, so I got to go through all these again, but with x squared minus 1 over x plus 4. So if I put in 0, f of 0 is going to be 0 minus 1, or minus 1, over 0 plus 4, which is 4. F of 1, I put in 1 and I'm going to get 1 squared, which is 1 minus 1, it says 0, over 1 plus 4 is 5, which is 0. F of minus 1. Minus 1 squared is 1, 1 minus 1 is 0, over minus 1 plus 4 is 3, which is 0. F of negative x. Negative x squared, negative x times negative x squared is same as x squared minus 1, and then if I put a negative x in for the x there, I get negative x plus 4. So the only thing that changes is that. Then the negative of f of x. And just put a minus out in front. Now I could put it in the numerator, which would make it negative x squared plus 1 over x plus 4. Or I could put it in the denominator and I'd have x squared minus 1 over minus x minus 4. But I don't put it into both of them. So any one of those three. And then f of x plus 1 would be x plus 1 in place of the x squared minus 1 over, in place of the x, I put x plus 1 plus 4. X plus 1 squared is x squared plus 2x plus 1. If I FOIL it out, minus 1 over x plus 1 plus 4 is x plus 5. These cancel, and so it's x squared plus 2x over x plus 5. And f of 2x is 2x in place of the x, 2x quantity squared minus 1 over, in place of the x, a 2x plus 4. 2x times 2x is 4x squared minus 1 over 2x plus 4. Can't simplify it, so that's it. And then finally, f of x plus h. So it's going to be x plus h squared minus 1 over x plus h is the new x plus 4. And it'll be okay to leave that. Normally I would multiply that out, subtract the 1 over this, but nothing will simplify, so that'll leave it like that. That's 46. Next one is, hopefully not one of those long ones, 55. And it says find the domain of these. So 55 is g of x equals x over x squared minus 16. Well, denominator can't be 0. Numerator can be, but denominator can't be. This factors to x plus 4 and x minus 4. So a negative 4 would make this be 0. Negative 4 squared is 16 minus 16, 0. And a positive 4 makes this 0, makes this denominator 0. 4 squared is 16 minus 16. So the domain is all reals except plus or minus 4. That's 55. Then we've got 65. and says, what's the domain of p of t, which is the square root of t minus 4 over 3t minus 21. Okay, this one I want to make sure you really understand. Division, the denominator can't equal 0. 3t minus 21 cannot equal 0. Add 21 to both sides. 3t cannot equal 21. Divide by 3. T cannot equal 7. That's one restriction. The other restriction, I cannot do the square roots of negatives. I can do 0 positives. So t minus 4 can be greater than or equal to 0, just not less than 0. So if I add 4 to both sides, I get t has to be greater than or equal to 4. So this one, the numerator, says I can use 1, 2, 3, 4 or more. This says I cannot use 7, so I've got to leave out 5, 6. I've got to leave out 7. So I can use everything above 4 except 7. I could write that in words, or in interval notation, I can use 4 up to 7, union, and not including 7, so that's why it's a parenthesis, from 7 to infinity. Okay? 67 says, got to do a bunch of things for f of x equal to 3x plus 4 and g of x equals 2x minus 3, and it says what's f plus g of x. And if we're doing x, it's going to be 3x plus 4 plus 2x minus 3. 3x plus 2x is 5x. And 4 minus 3 is 1. That's A. B says f minus g of x. So that's going to be 3x plus 4 minus 2x minus 3. So we got 3x minus 2x is x. 4 minus a minus 3 is 4 plus 3, which is 7. F times g. So that's 3x plus 4 times 2x minus 3. So that's 6x squared minus 9x plus 8x minus 12. So that's 6x squared minus x minus 12. A, B, C. Now we got to divide them. F divided by g of x. So I'm not going to do much other than write them divided. 3x plus 4 over 2x minus 3, because there's not much you can do to simplify that. E. No, do f plus g of 3. Well, I could plug 3 into my answer. That'd be 15 plus 1 is 16. Or I could plug 3 into each one of these. That'd be 3 times 3 is 9, plus 4 is 12, plus, and 3 into here. 3 times 2 is 6, minus 3 is 3. That's 15. I did something wrong here. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 4 is 13, plus 3 is 16. Okay, so I could put the 3 into the functions added, or I can put a 3 into each one and then add the answers. 16. F minus G of 4. So I can put 4 into each one separately, but I can also just put it into this. 4 plus 7 is 11. G says to do the product of F times G with 2. So I could put 2 into F and into G and then multiply the answers, or I can put it into what I got here, which would be 6 times 2 squared minus 2 minus 12. 4 times 6, 24, minus 2 minus 12 is 22, minus 12 is 10. And then H of F divided by G at 1. So if I put 1 into the numerator, I get 3 plus 4, 7. And 1 in the denominator, I get 2 minus 3, which is minus 1. So I get negative 7. Okay. Almost done here. 67, 79 says find the difference quotient for 4x plus 3. Difference quotient is f of x plus h minus f of x divided by h. X plus h in place of the x would be 4x plus h plus 3 minus f of x is 4x plus 3 divided by h. So I get 4x plus 4h plus 3 minus this quantity, so it's minus 4x and minus 3 over h. The 4x's cancel, the 3's cancel, and I've got 4h divided by h. H's cancel, and I get 4. The difference quotient is supposed to give me the slope. Well, this is the line. A line has a slope of 4. Always 4. So I knew the answer was going to be 4 before I started. And 83. Difference quotient for x squared minus x plus 4. So we got to put x, we got to do f of x plus h. So that's x plus h squared minus x plus h in place of the x plus 4. There's f of x plus h. Minus f of x. Well, that's x squared minus x plus 4 over h. F of x plus h minus f of x over h. Simplifying. X plus h times x plus h is x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. That's multiplying x plus h times x plus h. This minus goes to both of those, so that's minus x minus h plus 4. This minus goes through and changes everything, so that's minus x squared plus x minus 4 over h. X squareds cancel. The negative and positive x cancel, and the plus 4 and the minus 4 cancel, and so I got 2xh plus h squared minus h divided by h. So I factor an h out and I get h 2x plus h, because h times h is h squared, minus 1, because h times minus 1 is minus h, over h, and the h's cancel, and I get 2x plus h minus 1. Next one is 89. Doing the same thing, f of x equals the square root of x minus 2. So f of x plus h, I put x plus h in for the x, so that's square root of x plus h minus 2. Then I'm supposed to do minus f of x, so that's square root of x minus 2 over h. Then they said rationalize the numerator, which means since it's got square roots, multiply by the conjugate. I did this in class. The conjugate, if this is minus, we want to do the square root of x plus h minus 2 plus the square root of x minus 2. Numerator and the denominator. And what happens? Square root of x plus h minus 2 times the square root of x plus h minus 2. It's going to square it, which is going to get rid of the square root, so we'll have x plus h minus 2. I'm not going to write this one because it's going to cancel. This times this is going to be plus those two things multiplied. The insides multiplied is going to be minus the same two things multiplied. So I'm going to have a plus of those multiplied and a minus, and so they're going to cancel. And then I'm going to have a minus times a plus, which is minus, and this thing times itself, which is going to be x minus 2, over h and the square root of x plus h minus 2 plus the square root of x minus 2. In the numerator, the x and the minus x cancel, the minus 2 and the minus a minus 2 cancels, because that's plus 2. And so I have h over h times the quantity square root of x plus h minus 2 plus the square root of x plus 2. H's cancel, and I have 1 over the square root of x plus h minus 2 plus the square root of x plus 2. Long, messy problem. Next one is 93. This one's much shorter problem, I believe. If f of x is 2x to the third plus ax squared plus 4x minus 5, and f of 2 is 5, what is a? So it says if I make x's be 2, 2 times 2 squared plus a times 2 cubed squared plus 4 times 2 minus 5, I'm supposed to get 5. 2 cubed is 8 times 2, 16. 2 squared is 4, so plus 4a plus 8 minus 5 is supposed to equal 5. 16 8 is 24, minus 5 is 19, so I got 4a plus 19 equals 5. Subtract 19. 4a equals negative 14 divided by 4, and a equals negative 14 fourths, which is negative 7 halves, or negative 3.5. And finally, last one is 103. And that says the effect of gravity on the Earth is h of x equals 20 minus 4.9 x squared. And x is the seconds, and h is the height in meters. And a, what's the height after 1 second? 20 minus 4.9 times 1 squared is 15.1 meters at 1.1 seconds. Now I'm getting into a calculator problem here, so let's just do this. I'm going to do it the simple way. I'm going to turn the calculator on. I'm going to push y equals. I'm going to clear what's in there, and I'm going to put 20 minus 4.9x squared. I'm going to go to table set and put it on ask, and I'm going to go to table, and I'm going to clear all my x's by pressing delete, 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 and I'm going to put in 1.1, and it tells me when I put 1.1 in, I get 14.071. Then it says put in 1.2, and I get 12.944. Oh, by the way, I should put in 1. And there's the 15.1 I had before. And 1.3 seconds, I get 11.719. So that's at f of 1, f of 1.1, f of 1.2, and f of 1.3. That's part A. When is the rocket a height of 15 meters? Somewhere between 1 and 1.1. When is it at 10 meters? After 1.3. Let's try 1.2. No. After 1.3. 1.4. It's a little bit high, 1.5. Somewhere to between 1.4 and 1.5 seconds. That's the answer to B. 5 meters, we keep going here, so let's try 2. That's at 0.4, that's too low. 1.8, it's at 4. 1.7, it's at 5.8. So it's somewhere between 1.7 and 1.8. When does a rock hit the ground? 2, it's at 0.4. 2.1, it's at 2.1, it's below ground, so it's somewhere between 2 and 2.1. Hit the ground, the height would be 0. I can set 20 minus 4.9x squared. I can add 4.9x squared to both sides and get 4.9x squared equals 20. Divide by 4.9 and I get x squared equals 20 divided by 4.9, take the square root. 20 divided by 4.9 is that, and then take the square root of that answer, and it's about 2.02 seconds. Now I would go plus or minus, but won't make sense to talk about minus time on this, so it would be plus. Okay. And that was the final one. Done finally. That was 103.